In the desolate aftermath of a cataclysmic event, the world lay silent and barren. There were no signs of life. Every living creature had succumbed to an unknown and merciless plague. The streets were strewn with remnants of a bustling civilization, now nothing more than haunting memories of what once was. Amidst this grim tableau, a man named Jack emerged as the last survivor. Jack was an ordinary man with no extraordinary skills, a loner by nature. He had isolated himself from the world long before the apocalypse, and now the silence that enveloped him seemed strangely fitting. The days bled into one another, and as he explored the abandoned city, a sense of hopelessness crept into his heart. Though solitude had been his companion for years, the weight of being the last man on Earth was crushing. The empty buildings became his makeshift shelters, but their ghostly echoes haunted him. The whistling winds that swept through the deserted streets sounded like the mournful cries of a world left behind. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Jack sought refuge in an abandoned library. Rows upon rows of forgotten books surrounded him, remnants of human knowledge and wisdom left to gather dust. He chose one and began to read, hoping to distract himself from the bleak reality. But as the hours passed, he stumbled upon a journal, its pages filled with frantic handwriting. The author had been a scientist, desperately seeking a cure for the pandemic. Jack's heart sank as he realized that this person had likely been among the last to fall. The journal entries were harrowing, filled with despair and frantic attempts to understand the nature of the virus. The scientist had written about the agonizing pain that consumed the victims, how they succumbed to madness before their final breath. The symptoms mirrored what Jack had witnessed before he became the last man standing. The feverish dreams, the frenzied confusion, and the relentless suffering. In the depths of his loneliness, Jack couldn't bear the weight of his solitude any longer. He screamed into the void, hoping for an answer, for someone, anyone, to hear him. But only silence answered his desperate cries. Days turned into weeks, and Jack's mental state began to unravel. The isolation and the constant reminders of a world lost weighed heavily on him. He started to hear faint whispers in the dark corners of abandoned buildings, calling out his name. Shadows danced and twisted, mocking him with sinister grins. The boundaries between reality and nightmare blurred as he slept fitfully. Dreams of the dead clawing their way out of the ground plagued his nights, and he would wake up in a cold sweat, uncertain if he had ever truly slept. One night, as he huddled in the library with a flickering candle for company, he heard a voice. It was soft and melodic, an enchanting siren's call that seemed to emanate from everywhere and nowhere at once. The voice beckoned him to follow, promising him companionship and an end to his solitude. In a moment of desperate vulnerability, Jack decided to pursue the voice, hoping against all odds that there was someone left, another survivor who had managed to escape his notice. He followed the ethereal trail through darkened alleyways and desolate parks until he arrived at an abandoned theater. The grand entrance loomed before him, its doors creaking open as if inviting him in. The voice grew louder, its seductive melody filling his mind, clouding his judgment. He stepped inside, and the doors slammed shut behind him. Within the theater, shadows danced with sinister grace. The voice intensified, but now it held a malevolence that sent shivers down his spine. Panic gripped him as he realized the truth. There was no survivor, no hope of escape. The voice was a figment of his imagination, a manifestation of his own loneliness and desperation. As the haunting cries of the phantom voice surrounded him, the darkness of the theater became suffocating. Jack's mind fractured under the weight of his isolation, and he succumbed to madness. He screamed and pleaded for the voices to stop, but they only grew louder, tearing at his sanity. In his final moments of lucidity, he realized the cruel irony of his situation. He had longed for companionship, for a chance to escape the crushing solitude, only to be trapped in a nightmarish illusion of his own making. In the days that followed, the city remained a lifeless tomb, with no trace of the last man who had once walked its streets. The world had claimed its final victim, leaving no one behind to witness the desolation it had become. The last man on Earth had vanished, his existence reduced to a distant memory swallowed by the void of time.